Alrighty, are we ready to begin? Well, hi.
Hello.
How's it going, Paul?
Good.
Excellent.
How are you doing?
I'm just lovely. It's lush and really nice and humid here, so finally I'm warm.
Oh my gosh. I'm wearing
Hmm.
a bunny hat.
Is this how this goes? Here
Yes,
we are.
that's right. Here you are.
I didn't know.
That's how it goes.
Okay, here we go.
Google be damned.
So
You're
nice
here,
to see your
Dan.
faces. It's so nice to see your faces.
Nice to see you too. Hey, from way over, Paul. Paul used to be just down the hall, and now he's across the country.
In a total different climate.
Oh, nice to see you all.
The
So,
participants are growing. I'm watching this participants and getting a little anxious,
Oh, look at
to
that.
be
Eh?
come
perfectly honest.
hither,
We were
people.
never aware of people watching before.
Oh, so now quit obsessing. Don't even look.
Yeah, don't look.
So
Except for
I
that.
guess, go ahead, Paul.
Except for that first time, right, Dan, with you and Tracy when you did it on Instagram?
I know. Thinking back, it was like the journey we all had to just streamline the conversations into a clean and efficient method of communication, I guess.
Yeah.
That was so stressful. All of a sudden, I couldn't work anything. My
Yeah,
phone. I'm like, how do I get on my phone?
we've mastered technology. We've done it.
Yeah. We're
Ooh,
pros now.
we are. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, shall we do what we've done before and start off in a good way and do a smudge?
Sure.
All right. Maybe some of you haven't joined in on our other talks before, but we always like to start off with a smudge. It begins our talk in a good way, and yeah, it's kind of like a spiritual shower. So when you shower, you know, in the day and you just wipe off all the grime, well, the smudge is kind of like that too. Like you can wipe off all that unseeable sort of negative forces, I guess. Magic smudge. So what I have here, this is a little bundle of sage. It's one of the 4 medicines that my people use. And this was picked at Batosh in 2019 at the end of Walking with Our Sisters. And I still have a big bag, even though I keep giving it away. And so maybe I'll put it down here a little bit. And for those of you that know how to smudge and know the smudge, when I light it, I bet you can kind of smell it even. So it's always nice just to wash your hands, you know, when you first go in the morning and you wash your hands under water. It's the same sort of feeling. And cleansing your eyes so you'll see good things. Your nose so you'll smell and know good things. And your mouth so you'll say good things and speak good words. And your ears so that you can hear the good things that are being told to you. And I always like to smudge my hair. Our hair is very spiritual and sacred to us, but also it keeps the smell of smudge around. So, and then I just smudge down my body. And how about you guys here? A little bit for you, Paul and Dan, and some of our everyone out there. All right. I feel good. I feel great. Ready to have a really cool reconnection with you too.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. So we've done this before, but now it's interesting. We'll be doing territorial acknowledgements from 3 different places. So if I could start, and my new place here is I'm in Hamilton. I'm at Mcmaster University now, and Mcmaster University is located on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Mississauga nations, and we are guided by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement.
Mhm. So the university, I'm still at the University of Alberta, which is I love. It's just fantastic. It is University of Alberta is located on Treaty 6 territory and the Métis or that Métis homeland.
And I am based in Los Angeles and acknowledge that we operate on the, okay, I'm going to say these, and I've tried to do as much research as I possibly can to get the pronunciation, but depending on the website, there's different things telling me different things. So I'm trying my best. But we operate on the traditional lands of the Tongva, the Tataviam, and the Chumash peoples, including the Gabrieleño, Ferdinand, and Ventureño members of the Takic and Chumashan language families, and other indigenous peoples who made their homes in and around the area we now call Los Angeles.
Wow. Well done. That's amazing.
I tried very hard to figure out.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if I didn't say it properly, but hopefully someone can correct me if they feel like it.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. So now we're going to have Dr. Chris Anderson pop in for a bit to say a few words.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone listening, which is now over 1,100. Originally, when we had the little pre-meeting for this, I had said, so you've given me some speaking notes. Do you want me just to read it out, or do you want me to just kind of ad lib? And they said, well, just be you. And I said, I'm not sure that's what this occasion calls for. So if the folks will indulge me, I will kind of read a bit more formally than I would otherwise, because I don't want to forget anybody or anything that's been integral to this piece. So I'll say hello and greetings to everybody out there today. Everyone listening now need to know that this has been a remarkable time in the year that's passed since we began the Indigenous Canada conversations between Dan Levy and the Native Studies scholars in late 2020. We called it a weekend at Levy's. It's been such a wild year, and it's fun to be able to meet up and see each other again. And on behalf of the Faculty of Native Studies, I just want to say how truly appreciative we all are to the learners in particular who participated in the Indigenous Canada course. When our faculty created the course for public education in 2017, we never imagined the uptake it would get, where today we have over 404,000 registrations. Well done for taking advantage of this opportunity. Thank you. We're filled with gratitude for all of you who've supported our teaching and research this year through promoting Native Studies, engaging with the learning, and also, it must be said, donating to the faculty. And to you, Dan, your support has been incredible. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for using your networks and your influence to bring greater awareness to the faculty and to the Indigenous Canada course. It truly means so much that you're willing to take time out of your very busy schedule and that you're willing to co-host the event today for the University of Alberta's Alumni Week and in honor of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in Canada. So very much a hi and merci. Finally, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate Dr. Paul Gareau here in the faculty, Dr. Tracy Bear on her exciting new role as director of the Mcmaster Indigenous Research Institute at the University of Mcmaster, and Sarah Howdle for taking on the role of assistant director. I wanted to publicly thank the three of you from the bottom of my heart for all of your amazing contributions to the discipline and to the Faculty of Native Studies. And to Tracy and Sarah specifically, on behalf of the faculty and staff here in the faculty, we wish you the very best in your new role, in your new roles with Mcmaster University, which is an excellent university in its own right and has a growing Indigenous Studies program there as well. It's very nice to be co-hosting this event together, and it's so characteristic of Indigenous Studies as a discipline and of the Faculty of Native Studies to be working closely with one another and building our relationships over the long term as relatives and as cousins. So thank you very much for the invite, and thank you to all of you for the work that you've done and the love and the labor that you've put into this.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Hmm.
And thanks for having me back.
No problem.
Not a problem, believe me, Duncan. Come anytime you like.
Yeah, come back whenever.
I'm sure they'd build you a little house on the faculty in Pembina Hall if you wanted it, Paul.
I'm gonna come and visit at some point. I have to come and say hello the next time I'm there.
Dan, no offense, my wife loves you. There's a room in our house if you need to crash while you're here.
Okay, great. Perfect.
That's good.
I will take you up on it.
And we'll have a spa by then, so don't worry.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, great. I got my bases covered. Just doing Alberta in style.
Yeah, no kidding.
I just want to say that's such a good way to start, and the remarks from our dean, I keep saying of the dean of the Faculty of Native Studies. Thanks so much for those wonderful words, and I miss you guys very, very much, as you know. So we're back again, and it's really amazing to sit here with you two. So much has happened since we were all together like a year ago, and good things, as Chris mentioned. We have over 404,000 learners on Indigenous Canada, people who are enrolled, learning history, engaging. It's so heartening. It's so heartening. And as Jade Tatusis was saying earlier, these have been some dark days, and to have this kind of reconnection with everyone and talk about the things that we've all, talked about, and seeing where people are now, I think it's really, it's going to be a good day. There's this huge outpouring of interest and support for the work that's been done at the Faculty of Native Studies, and it's everyone who's listening and everyone who will listen to this, it's because of your generosity that the Faculty of Native Studies has really been able to weather some difficult, deep funding cuts. Some of our programs would never have survived if not for your generosity. So, such a huge thank you. I want to reiterate as well. We've had some unprecedented challenges globally, and many of us are dealing with an insane amount of stress and loss due to COVID-19. And then we had, of course, the first uncoverings of the 215 children at the Kamloops Residential School. And then they continue. These children's unmarked graves are still being unearthed across Canada. And we're reeling. This country is struggling with some really dark histories. And we as Indigenous people, too, are continuing to ask for recognition of our sovereignty and our connection, the recognition of our connection to these lands. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, because we're all wearing orange, and maybe some people might not know exactly what that means. So Paul, why are we wearing orange today?
So, thank you, Tracy. I'm wearing a hoodie, or in Saskatchewan we say it's a bunny hug, which is so much better to call this a bunny hug, because it hugs you.
I've adapted it. It's going over really well with some friends and family. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can hold your bunnies in it like this. So this is from First People's House from the University of Alberta, and really wonderful. And the art is by Jerry Whitehead. Right here, you can see that, right?
Yeah.
And this has been the artists and the patterns I've been using over the last few years for the First People's House, and it's beautiful. It's just such a beautiful, comfortable thing, and it's all the proceeds from the sales from these bunny hugs and the shirts and stuff go back to First People's House for their programming. So it's really, if you can find it on the website, buy one. It's really important work that they're doing there, and we're doing it together in the University of Alberta. Orange Shirt Day, the context in which we're wearing this, and it was yesterday. And yesterday me and Lucy and our family went to the park, and we saw everyone was wearing it. So many people were wearing orange shirts in whichever capacity they could, with designs like Tracy's, or just the way you're wearing, Dan, like a cute little orange sweater, like just to wear orange to, and it comes back to Phyllis Webstat's first experience. So about residential school. So Phyllis is Northern. I'm going to try to pronounce these as best as I can. These aren't my words, but the names of her community. So she's Northern Shamwek, and from the Straw Hump Community First Nation, Canoe Creek First Nations, and the importance of Orange Shirt Day around is that her story tells that personal experience of something that is so deeply structural, right, to Canada, and everything we're talking about in terms of structural racism and systemic oppression that happens in this country. So Phyllis was as a young girl, was raised by her grandparents, and the laws of, Canadian laws obligated children, Indigenous children, to go to school, right, as we know. So her grandparents bought a beautiful orange shirt, bright, to look her best and to step forward in a good way. So when she arrived to residential schools, the officials, the missionaries, they stripped Phyllis of her belongings, including her orange shirt. And this was her first step into settler institutions, right? And what was really important to recognize is that all the adults just left the children crying, and this is that kind of that visceral response, is that this wasn't about taking care of children, this was about institutionalizing children. So for us, Phyllis described, it was a defining moment because her orange shirt was the first thing that they tried to take away, so it points to the resiliency of Phyllis and Indigenous peoples all over who are living in what we call Canada now, right? This commemoration project. So Orange Shirt Day is a commemoration project that is meant to uplift survivors and highlight their experiences of residential schools. It's a day for survivors to be reaffirmed that they matter, right? And I think that's what's really great about people wearing orange in whichever way you can, to commemorate and say, yes, you're resilient and you do matter to us, even in settler society in Canada in general, right? So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful, beautiful rendition, Paul. And I kind of remember when the TRC went through Edmonton, one of the more poignant moments of that is the birthday cupcake part, where they had cupcakes for residential school survivors who came there as birthdays, because birthdays were never celebrated in residential school. So this was like we recognize every year that we have our children's birthdays. We make a big deal out of them, that the children were in residential schools. It just went by without them knowing. So it was such a small thing, but really a huge thing. And the orange shirts, when I saw all the orange shirts yesterday, my heart was soaring and it made me feel so good. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe for people who are just tuning in or haven't had the chance to chat with us three, maybe Dan, you could tell them how this all came about. Why are we sitting here today chatting with each other?
Well, I mean, it really kind of came from the social and political turmoil of 2020, and the growing my need and desire to relearn the history of my country in order to rebuild relationships. And as Paul was saying, yesterday was Orange Shirt Day, but for all of us settlers, it's important to know that there is a continued need to uplift settlers, or survivors rather, and their family, as well as realign Indigenous settler relations according to treaty obligations and Indigenous political structures and various worldviews. And that was something that I now have a clearer sense on. But at the time, a year and a half ago, I knew nothing about. And it's changed my life. And so, yeah, this whole conversation came out of seeing a post about the course, choosing to sign up for it, and then thinking in this time of allyship and activism, what really does that mean? Is me taking a course really squeezing everything I possibly can out of my allyship? Is it really activism, or is there something more that I can do to activate the activism or to activate my allyship? And that really sat with me. And I thought, well, I have this community of people that I have been fortunate enough to surround myself with on various social media platforms. what if I contacted the two of you and started to create a community around the course, a community of people like myself who, you know, I was never very good in school. The whole concept of, you know, conventional education was hard for me. And I have always learned through communication. I've always learned through conversation. And I thought, well, if we can have deeper, richer conversations surrounding the information we're learning every week, maybe that will allow people like myself to have that information penetrate a little bit deeper, and to also uncover and to, you know, in the case of many of our conversations, bring in additional voices to expand upon everything we were learning. And so I reached out to you, Dr. Tracy, in a cold email, and I was thinking, like, this is probably going to end up in her spam. I don't know what's going on, but I'll try it anyway. And I just said, would you be open to this? And you know, the one thing I did know was that you had already done enough. It was so important for me to let you know that I was not asking you to do anything above and beyond, because you've already done enough. But it was out of a curiosity. Is this something that you were interested in, that you didn't feel was an obligation, but could be something exciting? And you both were fortunate enough to have said yes to that. And so we started to have these conversations. And obviously it goes without saying that it's completely changed my life. And it's been really reassuring. And as you were saying, heartening to know that it has caught on, and that this idea of understanding our history, understanding the real history of our country, is crucial in being of better service to people, being of better service to communities, being of better service to people, and understanding and being, it's hard to really be an ally for someone if you don't understand where they're coming from. And I think this course lays a foundation for people who don't know to have a base of information that we were simply never taught in school. It's coming very late for me. I wish that this was something that I had growing up. I think it would have completely changed the trajectory of my perspective on Canada. But I'm grateful, eternally grateful, that I was able to learn it when I did, and that we have now developed a community of people who are also learning, that there's over 400,000 people who are learning. That's an incredible thing. And I hope through our conversations and through the idea of what can you do to expand upon your activism, that these people who are taking this course and the people out there watching right now will think, okay, well, I'm going to call my friend, I'm going to call my aunt, I'm going to call my family and say, you should do this as well. It's great to do it for yourself, but it's even better to know that you have access to even one person. I think a lot of people could feel discouraged by the idea that they don't have, you know, a lot of, you know, they can't make a huge impact. But what is a huge impact if not changing a person's life, or enriching a person's life, or expanding someone's mind? So that only takes one person, and everyone knows one person that they can sort of rally into this and continue to expand on the conversation. So it's so nice to be back here with the two of you, and to hear from some people who have taken the course, who have written into us to share what they've learned, to share what they've experienced. And it's amazing to hear these stories, and I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it. And I hope that we can continue these conversations well into the future.
It's you're right, Dan. It's that amplification of voices, like using whatever platform you may have. I mean, you have a little more than one person, you know, which is great. But you're right, we all have that one person, and to even play off these ideas, because sometimes, you know, we came to the talk a little emotional. We're dealing with some heavy stuff, so it's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of. And I just want to go back a little bit when so you emailed me and you said, you know, may have gone in my spam, and it may have, but I was all alone in my house at that time, and I'm like, I saw your name, I'm like talking my Brum, Look who emailed me. Look at this.
Bromida.
And then Paul, what do you want to do? So it was excitement all around, I think, and to do this with you, you two, it's been really amazing. And the cards still continue. The letters and emails and messages to all of us still continue to come in. I even got some mail at Mcmaster already of people appreciative of this course, and so. I don't think we can even begin to understand the benefits, the outside, the ripple effects that this has had. Paul, do you remember where we were at with numbers before Dan emailed?
So ADSACE. So I don't know. It was like very half of these numbers really, because it was a year ago. But when you first started, we had a 50,000 person bump in 1 week. I thought it was a glitch, like usually got 1,000 people. What?
Listen, there's a lot of, you can say a lot of bad things about the internet, but this has really been such a wonderful example of how social media can do good. Yeah. It really is. Because I did nothing. I just simply asked people. It had very little to do with me and almost everything to do with your course and people at home choosing to learn. Mm-hmm. So I simply just shared a link and opened a door. But it's amazing to see the people who have chosen to learn and then to take that on and expand their own sort of communities from it. Mm-hmm.
And there are people from all over, all different kinds of professions, from grandmothers that just want to talk to their kids about it to administrators. We've gotten lots and lots of people. So did we want to delve into some of the testimonials? Because we did put an ask out, where are you now? And we've gotten some pretty cool testimonials. So did you want to start with the first one here, Dan?
Oh, Tracy. Can I say something too? Is that there's a lot of women taking this course, and it's women's leadership that is making this course, blossom and work really well. So thank you, Tracy, for being a good leader, and for all the women out there in Canada and across doing this work of change and truth, right? So I really want to say that.
Oh, thanks.
Brownie points.
Paul. Hug.
Oh. Now go.
So we got a letter from Scott, who wrote us a quite extensive note about how the course has changed him and how he has sort of activated on that. And so this is kind of a truncated version of what he had sent in, but he wanted to share the skills and some of the ways in which he's acted on the course. And so he wrote and said that he now has an ability to listen differently to the public messages I hear about Indigenous issues. I remarked to my wife numerous weeks ago that I definitely received what an Indigenous person on CBC call-in residential schools was saying, with much more understanding, empathy, and patience. I'm also being more vocal with my family and friends to create discussion around what might be possible for true reconciliation, and wrote a post on Facebook on Canada Day saying this year I just couldn't celebrate Canada Day because of the shame and frustration I feel about the way Indigenous people have been and still are being treated. I was surprised by receiving both positive and negative comments and by the silence I experienced from many others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can say that I had that same feedback. When I also said that we should be, I basically told people to take the course instead of celebrating Canada Day, and get a real sense about what the land that we're living on actually, where it all came from, where it originated, and the people that were here long before Canada was a country that we have decided to celebrate year after year. And it's been remarkable to see how I think when people feel embarrassed or shamed, they tend to retaliate in a way that's that's emboldening them even more, which is a disturbing reality. It was really inspiring in many cases to see the people that agreed, and I think to see the community-based movement to change the way that Canada and Canada Day are seen. But it's an interesting thing, and I wish that I could have had conversations with the people who were, writing underneath, well, why can't we have both? And it's like, did you take the course? Because that's the answer to your question.
Yeah. Those, and you can see why those feelings, it goes against every nationalistic sort of what we have in our bodies about what we think about Canada, the pride and, the satisfaction, and sometimes, superiority complex, I think, to our neighbors to the south. I think we have all of these, and so when you put that sort of dark history in, you can feel those feelings of shame and guilt, and it can impact you. And it can impact you in a good way where you want to learn more and understand it. But, you can sit in that shame. And we all know that those types of negative emotions don't help anybody. Doesn't help the person feeling them. And it certainly doesn't help the people who are trying to teach.
And again, it's all rooted in a lack of education. It's all rooted in a lack of understanding. Because I think if any of those people were aware and didn't just look at it as, well, why can't I have a barbecue with my friends? And actually just looked at the real reasons behind it. You can have a barbecue any weekend you want, but maybe before you do it on a day that's celebrating something that is far more complicated than just learn. That's all it is. And that's what this course has done for so many of us, and so many people watching right now, I think, are in agreement with the fact that it has opened our eyes to a history and to a sense of our land and the people who inhabit it that is far more, that deserves far more sensitivity. And I think, to what you were saying, Canadians rest their hat on the fact that we're nicer, we have less conflict, we are somehow, a better country. I think it makes a lot of people feel good to compare us to the United States. But I think what this past year has shown all of us in.
Has Dan frozen for you too, Paul?
Yeah. Am I frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
Okay. I'm going to keep moving then.
Okay. So Paul, while Dan's kind of unfreezing himself like a abominable snowman, what do you think about this this idea that, let's just think about Canada Day for a minute. Let's slow down, take a breath, recognize, because that was around when, 215 children had been, their bodies had been discovered in Kamloops. What do you think about that reaction that Dan and others got?
Yeah.
Am I back?
You're back.
Can you
You're
see me?
unfrozen.
I'm sorry, my computer just absolutely died. I have no idea why. Continue.
Okay. I was just asking Paul to continue on
Can
that
you hear me?
plot line of what he thinks about people reconsidering Canada Day, and what were his thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it's we often think of nationhood or nationalism as an all or nothing kind of thing, and that all or nothing is this trajectory from contact to modernization in the modern Canada, right? And Indigenous people just don't fit in, or we should just it's just part of a multicultural perspective that Canada has sovereign and Canadian identity matters the most, right? But what I found really sort of interesting in all of this response and framing it within our course too is that it's just about making space for Indigenous sovereignty, right? and the self-determination of Indigenous nations, and that doesn't need to be in conflict with what Canada means. Like the ideal of a nation to nation engagement is wonderful. Like the idea of that Indigenous peoples are always engaging in treaties and diplomacy and all these different aspects. So why is that a threat to Canadian identity, right? So, and what I think what many and most Indigenous peoples are really upset about is that breaking of those relations, and that misrecognition or that incapacity to see Indigenous nations and the relations that happen all over the place, right? So that kind of relationality, that sort of political, diplomatic, with humans and more than humans, right, all over where we live, they're situated where we live, has been like such a blessing from this course and this conversation we're having, of being a gentle reminder of the legacy of settler colonialism and how that affects everything from, from celebrating Canada Day to the Orange Shirt Day. Like these are all intertwined together. Missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people. That's all intertwined together. So it's like these gentle steps that happen, like with Tracy and me and you, Dan, that really sort of like shake the complacency, educate gently, and then start to like sort of like motivate change, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think gentle is the word here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware of the time. We're discussing how we always went on and on, and our YouTube videos are supposed to be an hour, and they never are. So I'm going to talk about the second testimonial that we have here from Mira. And so the question was, what have you applied, what you learned in the Indigenous Canada MOOC this year? And like many people who write in, she said, last year's MOOC was transformative. Not only did I relearn some Native history, particularly eye-opening, giving everything I was taught in grade school back home in Connecticut, a state founded on Native land, but I was also motivated to learn more about my own history. You see, I too am Indian, not Native, but the child of immigrants who fled a post-colonial India to also make themselves a life for themselves in America. And similar to Dan, this course encouraged me to think about my own history, and that of my family. So each week, Mira says that she gained more and more inspiration to spend more time understanding her parents' post-British India, their whitewashed history lessons, very good, and their own struggles to balance identity after moving to the States. Colonists shaped so much of this world as we know it, but at what expense? Are we always going to live in a society where behavior is driven by insecurity, pride, power, and ignorance? One of the most powerful takeaways from the course was the constant asking of these questions. How can we educate ourselves, others, and hold people accountable for the language that they use? Is identification a feeling or an intellectual process? Who defines us? Are we allowed to feel both proud of our country and frustrated with its history? Last year, I learned a powerful lesson. I learned it's okay to challenge the uncomfortable, even if it's difficult. I learned that staying silent doesn't change a damn thing. A lot there. Hey, Mira. Yeah, and some of our YouTube videos, Dan did discuss, his own place and your family's history, and how it relates to Canada. Did you want to talk a little bit about that, Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the again, in taking the course, in talking to the two of you, I think the subtle changes that we make in our day-to-day lives have a big impact on helping to respect racist vernacular that has made its way into our day-to-day lives. The number of people that I have gently corrected on using the word civilized, for example. I think a lot of people use it not knowing its origins at all, not knowing that there are communities of people who are incredibly sensitive to that word and what it means and where it came from. It's a simple thing to learn about something like, and it's a very easy thing to say to somebody, were you aware that this word that you just used has this meaning? And the number of people who were not, obviously, that's why they were using it in conversation. The number of people who have contacted me after having that conversation who have said, I've corrected it in someone else, I've corrected it in someone else. It's, you don't have to be coming down on someone for using a word they don't know, the origin to, but you can gently and graciously change the way that we as settlers have been indoctrinated into this vocabulary that has many origins in problematic, the conversation, touching on what she was saying in terms of the words that we use, that's power. That's getting power back to communities, because, the language is so crucial. And yet at the same time, if you can shift the language, that has a massive effect on things. And that, I think, has been, and there's so many kind of, if you were to take the course, and for those of you out there who are listening, if you've watched all of our videos, there were so many moments where I was course corrected in the best way. I mean, in such a necessary way. And it's about being open to the correction. It's about being open to the fact that you don't know a lot. And I think as human beings, our brains are programmed to protect us and make us feel like we do know a lot, and we are confident, and we do have information, and we are educated. It's okay to acknowledge that there are major areas of our brain, of our knowledge that are gaping. There are gaping holes. That's what this course did, and it only inspired me to continue to learn. So, for my own history, in terms of where my family came from and the injustices that my relatives have had to endure in the Holocaust and being a gay person, there are things that you can use from your own life to build a bridge of empathy to better understand other communities who are looking for that same kind of reconciliation and that same kind of care and respect. So yeah, I mean, it's actively, I keep going back to that word. It's an active thing. You can't be passive through this experience. You have to be open and active to changing your life.
Yeah,
because it's privilege, ultimately.
It is.
The words that we say are privileged. And once you understand that privilege can be found in even the simplest things that we might not even think twice about, it helps to better position yourself to be of better service and to hopefully be a better ally to people. That was very long and convoluted, but what she wrote was very true and held a lot of power, I think.
And there is so much learning and discovery in that uncomfortability. When you're getting into an uncomfortable situation, it's like you're getting closer to the fire and you want to turn away. But in this case, it's really important to sit yourself there and know that it's okay, that probably the person next to you or whoever else is learning is uncomfortable too. It's awkward and growth is hard, but I think it's absolutely necessary. We don't want to sit in that shame and the guilt and those sort of negative feelings. That's not what Indigenous people are asking. They're asking for recognition. They're asking for, that empathy. And Paul, you are so good at this. Like, if anyone schools Dan, you always did it in like such a gentle way, You're like, so I just want to gently say that this is the type of word that we're using. This is why,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about saying thank you for telling me this moment of, of
Yes.
where you're situated, right? Because it's, again, it has to do with truth, this like this drive to a solo truth. Indigenous peoples
Mm.
are always about situated truths, right? Like multiple truths. And so take it as like that you're encountering different truths that are meaningful to people and to you, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that relationship that we're building.
Mm-hmm.
Takes
Yeah.
time. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another testimonial. Paul, you want to take this one?
You bet. And listen up, listen to my beautiful voice.
Your beautiful,
So,
gentle voice.
beautiful, gentle voice. So this is our third testimony. We got lots, but this one is really fun. This is from Nicole Baker. She's Whitney from Red Pheasant Reserve, Red Pheasant Cree Nation. So she writes, I've dedicated my career to help bring together Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities for the purpose of collaboration and knowledge sharing. And then she wrote a very beautiful long piece, but I'm just going to bring you out a few paragraphs. Although I am Indigenous, I am not an expert on all Indigenous communities, right? We are very diverse and dynamic peoples. However, I can speak confidently and respectfully to Indigenous communities with compassion and a shared understanding of their unique cultural differences. I strive to build meaningful relationships with Indigenous communities, organizations, and businesses that interact with and on the job. This requires having expertise in the technical aspects of industry, as well as having people skills and knowledge of Indigenous history and culture, right? So she's talking about that pluralism and that engagement, right? It is a very in-depth learning tool. She's talking about the course that can help us all become better allies, colleagues, and neighbors, as well as we all share in the rich history, in this rich history and these territories. With truth and reconciliation at the forefront of our hearts and minds, it is our responsibility as Canadians to learn and acknowledge the resilience, strength, and contribution of Indigenous peoples now and into the future. So thank you, Nicole Baker. Hi.
Mhm.
That was really excellent, because it's a sentiment from people who are related to. There are people in our faculty who are from Red Pheasant, and it's just really good to see that we're not all strangers either, but that Indigenous peoples are also engaging and finding these discussions really important in order to see, like Tracy said, to find that recognition and to move forward together in reciprocity, right?
Mhm.
So I'm very happy and honored that Nicole wrote to us with this really great statement of thanks and
Mhm.
hope for the future, right? It's
Yeah.
like sometimes I feel we can be bleak and like
Yeah.
so downed by these things, but humor and relationships and fun and food and all these things, bring us together and make things so much stronger for that, right? So,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
Nicole.
Don't forget the food, man.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. We're not eating now, but you know what I mean. Once COVID is over, I guess.
I really miss that. Yeah. Getting
Yeah,
together, breaking bread. It's always been an important part. And
breaking
I have
bread.
to mention, so yesterday at Mcmaster, we had a ceremony of remembrance. And I got to sit, they have this beautiful ceremonial space outside, and I sat by a big drum. Like I wasn't just listening to a big drum like Tribe Called Red on my phone or in my car or on the speaker. I was right next to it, and I just had to close my eyes and smell the medicines that was burning and just like be so incredibly grounded. And so even though I'm way over here in Hamilton and way outside of Treaty 6 territory, um, that connection that we all hold as Indigenous peoples and inviting other peoples into our circle is really grounding. And you can see the songs, like a group sang the Bear Song. And the Bear Song is a song I learned at the Edmonton Institution for Women while I was there. Doing post-secondary education, and I could sing along. I'm
Oh,
here in Haudenosaunee territory, and I could sing along to the song, and it just, it was such a beautiful, no one knew it was a welcome, but it was such a beautiful welcoming thing, thinking, wow, so, Cree and Haudenosaunee, we're all very different, but there are songs that we have kept from our ancestors. There's medicines that we've kept, and we've kept all of that. And it really was a tribute to the survival and the thriving of our ancestors. So they held on to these songs and these medicines and these stories. And now this generation, you know, such deep respect to them for keeping that for us. And so, you know, Nicole Baker, Indigenous Canada wasn't just for settlers and allies and non-Indigenous people. It's for everyone, and everyone to use as a resource as well. So I wanted to share that because I got to sit beside a big drum and hear it, and I still, it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Anyway, getting emotional.
Ah, it's called.
Yeah. So, Dan, anything to say about this idea of becoming a better allies that Nicole was talking about?
Well, I think, you know, it goes without saying that for those who have watched our conversations and for those who I hope will be inspired to watch our conversations, the idea that I will always be in a state of education and that my goal at this point is to just learn as much as I can, to help as much as I can, and to, I think one thing that I've been thinking the whole time, and we touched upon this right in the beginning too, when I talked about emailing you, was we've talked about this quest for information. And I think it's important to clarify, because we have had people write in over the 12 weeks, asking almost too much, meaning putting too much of the education and too much of the learning onto the people who should not be teaching. It's a settler's responsibility to find the answers ourselves. You cannot impose and put weight onto people when it's not their responsibility to educate. And so that, to me, I think was something that became very clear over those 12 weeks, because we did receive a lot of letters from people who were confused, that they asked for help. They asked, you know, someone in their workplace for information or to be a part of something. And it was almost in a way like they were asking for a favor. And it's not anyone's responsibility to do us as settlers a favor. It is our eternal responsibility to quest to be of service. And that requires going above and beyond answering our own questions so that we can show up and be prepared. And that, I think, is a big thing, and something that I think a lot of people don't even think about. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing to want to seek information. It's just always being aware that where are you getting the information from, and is it at the expense or the cost or the time or the energy of someone who does not owe you that information. That, I think, in terms of the conversation of being an ally, I think a lot of people in this, particularly in this culture where we're so used to just getting things, we can order things online, we can, you know, we're so accustomed to just
instant
getting information wherever and whenever we want it. It's understanding that our responsibility as settlers is not to go to you for the information, but rather to find it ourselves. And that's why, again, going back to that initial email, I was tried as best I could to clarify that I was not wanting you to do something for me, but hopefully that we could do something together that would be, you know, that you were, you know, giving you the space to say no to that, and not just request. Settlement is a big cultural thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. And that was, I think, you know, for me was really eye-opening in terms of just the letters that we received of people not understanding why they weren't being so easily accepted into communities, or why certain people weren't willing to give them information so easily. And it really came down to being blind to the fact that nobody owes you that information.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point you brought up. And yeah, certainly some of our letters and requests were that. And I think you made a point of it in the very first email. I never felt put upon at all. It was like, just offering this, if this is what you want, it was very gentle, as I guess I would describe Paul. It was very respectful. It's nice.
Good job, Dan.
So where are we now? Where are we? What are we doing? And who are you pointing to, me or?
Okay, but I'm not pointing to you now.
So since we last saw each other, I can share a little bit about what's happening at Mcmaster. So as was pointed out, I'm the new director for the Mcmaster Indigenous Research Institute, and Mcmaster is a really research-intensive university, ranked 4th in Canada. But that's not why I moved. And Mary, so it's Indigenous research centered, and it showcases and supports Indigenous researchers. And the Institute is heading up a prison education project. And I've talked to you and Paul and Dan about this, seeking to make post-secondary education accessible to incarcerated folks. So currently, Canada doesn't have a university that grants degrees to incarcerated folks. The US, although it has its own privatized prison problems, they do. And so we want to incorporate that here at Mcmaster and become the first degree granting institution for incarcerated folks. And Paul.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you. It's lots of work, but we talked about responsibility, right? And we all feel accountable. Many of us feel accountable and responsible in the things that we do here on this planet. And we all pick a thing, and this is my thing. So Paul, what's shaken at the Faculty of Native Studies since I've been gone?
So since you've been gone, you've developed some of these things, which is really great. Thank you. So because of like the strength of this course and how things are moving online with COVID and stuff, the Faculty of Native Studies, and you can find this on the website, have developed 2 courses. The first one is NS 161, Countering Stereotypes of Indigenous Peoples, which is taught by Tasha Hubbard, awesome, Tracy Bear, awesome, Sarah Howdle, and they co-produced this really great, Sarah Howdle, who's co-produced this segment today, and Molly Swain. So really great people who are doing this work. And what it does is that it sort of engages, it totally engages the prevalent stereotypes of Indigenous peoples and unpacks it, I always say sort of. It challenges the narratives of both skew the lived experience of Indigenous people and allow for the replication of stereotypes and to reinforce colonial relationships. So it unpacks that kind of structural thing that comes in the everyday language, like Dan said. It's a really great course to start to see how we can decolonize the languages of our everyday and really focus on Indigenous experiences, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then the next course that we're offering is NS 115, which is Indigenous Peoples and Technoscience, which is awesome. A very, very unique course taught by the amazing Dr. Kim Tallbear and Jessica Kolopenik. So this course introduces students to the intricate connections between science and technology fields, which is really amazing and unique. Broader dynamics of colonialism and increasing demands for Indigenous governance of science and technology, so STEM. The course is structured by centering Indigenous people's relationships with the science and technology fields as object subjects, collaborators, and scientists. So it really unpacks those, a field in which that Indigenous peoples and epistemologies and ontologies never seem to fit for some weird reason. Mm-hmm. But the more work you do, the more you see how everything fits in really great ways. And Kim and Jessica are leaders in STEM and Indigenous ways of being and knowing, and it's an incredible course. So it's an incredible set of courses that are free for, not free, but they're available.
This one's not free.
Nothing's free anymore. No,
yeah.
But great stuff.
I feel like we should do a discussion around those as well at some point.
That would be awesome.
That would be amazing.
They feel like that feels very I feel like our conversation, that's a good place to go next.
We'll go over.
Mhm.
So we have to say goodbye for now, but before we do, I just want to thank Sarah Howdle from McMaster University, who's our co-producer, and you've seen her a few times, and she's helping us get on this together. Jessica Kennedy and Emma Radford from Alumni Relations, and of course, Jay Tutusis and Jordan Cook from the Faculty of Native Studies, who's keeping us in line. We want to thank everyone for tuning in and sharing of how you're taking up this collective responsibility for truth for reconciliation. I want to give Dan, and I'm sure Paul does, a great, big, huge, across the ocean hug for reconnecting with us. It's so good to see your face. And I want to thank
Likewise.
my amazing friend and colleague, Paul Gareau, for just being you. And I want you to please stay tuned to all these media channels that we all have, because there is some exciting, really cool stuff that's going to be happening and continue to happen. So stay tuned for that. And look at me, it's 2:00. This is the
Holy.
first.
I don't think we've ever done this right on within the hour. It is it is a feat.
That's right.
It
So
was
any
so
last
nice
words, Dan?
Yeah, it was so nice to be here with the two of you. And I'm sorry that for some reason my internet is not operating at 100%, but hopefully this will all come through. But again, I cannot recommend this course enough. Please take the new courses that were just discussed, and hopefully we can build a conversation around those as well. And again, do what I did, you know, find people who haven't taken the course, get them to take it, and then have a conversation with them about it and talk to them about what it's done for them, and incredible domino of educating themselves and hopefully being of greater service, because that's the key to all of it. So again, forever indebted to the two of you for your generosity and your knowledge and your time and your eloquence when it comes to communicating all of this information in such beautiful and meaningful ways. So it's been a thrill. I can't wait till we get to see each other again. And a big thank you to everyone who tuned in today, and everyone who has taken the course, and everyone who will take the course.
Yes. All right. Until next time.
Merci.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.